For 20 years, Professor Elias searched for a mathematical equation that could define the balance of a just society. He was working within the classical doctrine of public finance. This theory treats taxes as financial masses, impersonal blocks of capital to be managed, controlled, and optimized to keep the state functioning. This model relies entirely on the concept of material having. It calculates what the state can take from a citizen's bank account, but it ignores the being, the actual human existence required to generate that wealth. After 11 years and 11 established formulas, the ultimate equation for a functional society remained a mystery. This gap in the math explains why society feels alienated. Economists have spent decades refining how they measure currency, but they have been measuring the wrong variables. The answer didn't emerge in a lecture hall, but in a corridor. It came from Mamadou, a janitor working the night shift. It's 2 a.m. at the UN Data Lab. The 2025 Human Development Report is due in hours, and the numbers are bleak. Growth is flatlining. Since the post-COVID recovery sputtered out, human progress has stalled across almost every region. We are looking at the lowest projected growth since 1990. The traditional Human Development Index, or HDI, acts as a thermometer. It confirms that human progress has stalled, but it lacks the internal logic to explain why it's happening. Consequences become visible when the state fails to return its value. We see it in dusty, vacant classrooms, where promised education never arrived. We see it in desolate hospital corridors, where citizens who gave their time and taxes must give even more of their lives waiting for care. The state sequesters these portions of a citizen's lifespan, holding them in an accounting abstraction. The United Nations 2025 Human Development Report reveals a disturbing reality. Global human progress has hit a historic wall. Driven largely by institutional failures in developing nations, the numbers show a complete stagnation in our collective advancement. Every single coin collected by the state represents a literal fraction of your lifespan ticking away into dust. The Human Development Index attempts to track our progress by measuring societal outcomes, our health, education, and standard of living. But it contains a critical blind spot. It entirely ignores the institutional cost extracted from the individual citizen to achieve those exact outcomes. Every month, Mamadou sees a deduction of 23,000 ouguiyas from his paycheck. To a state accountant, this figure represents social charges, a routine entry in a ledger. To Mamadou, that number represents 11 days of work where he did not see his children. Abstract fiscal policy remains blind to the people it governs until it is forced to account for the actual cost of those missing hours. When we apply Mamadou's perspective to the math, the entire theory of public finance shifts. A tax of 23,000 ouguiyas is a literal extraction of 11 days of human life. By dividing the total deduction by the daily net salary, we find the exact days taken. This is temporal alienation. These 11 days represent a portion of his finite lifespan given to the state. To address this measurement gap, we must rethink the nature of taxation itself. This is the premise of Professor AHMED ELY Mustapha's vitalist theory of public finance. The theory's core axiom holds that taxation is a direct confiscation of a citizen's precious time and life. The logic follows a strict sequence. Money is earned through labor, labor consumes time, and time is a finite fraction of a human lifespan. When a state exacts this life from a citizen, it incurs an existential debt. The state's legitimacy depends on its ability to return that life through effective public services. This framework, known as the vitalist calculus, allows us to quantify exactly how many days of life states extract and how much they actually pay back. If the state extracts 11 days of life, the social contract requires that it returns 11 days of value. This logic forms the 12th formula, the score de restitution vitale, or SRV. When a state collects those days but fails to provide functioning hospitals or schools, it creates a deficit in the citizen's very existence. By measuring the days of life lost through poor restitution, we can pinpoint the source of global unrest. Measuring progress without accounting for the confiscation of the citizen's personal resources creates a statistical illusion of development. We see the roads built, but not the specific sacrifices demanded to pave them. Classical economics, from Richard Musgrave to modern public policy, has traditionally treated taxation as the management of financial assets. It views public finance through the lens of l'avoir, the money we have. Existentialist philosophy provides a sharp, necessary counterpoint, focusing instead on lech, human existence. Every dollar earned is the product of human labor, and labor requires the expenditure of finite human time. Professor AHMED ELY Mustapha fuses this existential reality with economics to create the vitalist theory of public finance. This chart shows a mathematical equivalence. Because income requires labor and labor consumes time, a tax on your income is the literal confiscation of your lifespan. Monetary value equals life value. Public administration manages quantified human existence. It acts as the steward of the life hours extracted from the population, making restitution mandatory. This foundational framework aligns directly with Amartya Sen's influential capabilities approach, which argues that true economic welfare is defined by the real freedoms and effective functions a person possesses, rather than their raw income. The vitalist theory advances Sen's work by interrogating the source of those capabilities. It asks whether the state has fairly financed those functions by returning the exact equivalent of the life it extracted to build them. To prove this restitution occurs, we must build a mathematical algorithm capable of calculating the precise moral debt of the state. We start by establishing the baseline metric of extraction. Exactly how much life does the state take from a single citizen? Here is the formula for V1. It divides total annual taxes paid, represented by T, by the citizen's average daily wage, or SJ. This strips away the currency entirely. The output is the exact number of working days confiscated by the state per year. This metric redefines the tax bracket as a visceral measure of the existence a citizen surrenders each year. When the state confiscates life through V1, it incurs an obligation to return that life through functional public capabilities. The score de retour vitalist, or SRV, measures restitution out of 100 using objective WHO and UNESCO data. The algorithm assigns existential weights. Health receives 0.30, education 0.25, justice 0.20, infrastructure 0.15, and administration 0.10. The SRV calculates the exact percentage of confiscated life the state actually pays back to the citizen. We can now merge extraction and restitution to reveal the master equation, the vitalist deficit, known as V7. Here we see the calculation. We multiply the days confiscated, V1, by the percentage of services not returned, which is 1 minus the SRV over 100. V7 represents the exact number of days of human life permanently destroyed by the state each year, without any compensatory return. Do higher national tax rates objectively cost the citizen more? This visualization compares 2025 UN figures for two models: France, a highly taxed nation, against Mauritania, a lower-taxed developing nation. Looking at extraction, V1, France confiscates 138 days of life per year. Mauritania confiscates fewer, 108 days. But restitution alters the equation. France returns 70.5% of that extracted value. Mauritania returns only 34.5%. This generates the final V7 vitalist deficit. The average Mauritanian suffers a net vitalist deficit of 70.7 days a year, compared to the French citizen's 40.7 days. The justice of a tax system is determined entirely by the efficiency of its restitution. High taxation paired with high restitution is objectively more just than low taxation marred by state failure. This brings us to the Indice vitalist du développement humain, or IVDH. This new metric merges the UN's Standard Human Development Index with the vitalist SRV score. This scatter plot maps the standard HDI against the new IVDH to reveal the illusion gap, the mathematical delta between how developed a country appears on paper and the actual lived reality of its institutional restitution. The data exposes extreme outliers. In nations like South Sudan and Morocco, statistical development masks severe vitalist deficits. A stagnant IVDH proves governments are failing to return the life they take, even as their baseline economic wealth increases. The 2025 UN report highlights a critical variable moving forward: deploying artificial intelligence in government. We can now evaluate this technological shift through the vitalist formulas. If an administration uses AI to optimize public services, like accelerating legal decisions or managing healthcare logistics, it raises the SRV restitution score without requiring higher taxes. However, if AI is used primarily to optimize tax surveillance and extraction without improving public services, it artificially inflates the V1 metric, expanding the ultimate vitalist exit. Treating AI merely as an administrative efficiency tool rather than a restitution tool will mathematically accelerate the confiscation of human life. Public administration operates as an existential contract. Every ledger entry represents a real-world commitment to the citizen's limited time. Through this lens, embezzlement, corruption, and bureaucratic stagnation appear as breaches of that contract. In the vitalist framework, state inefficiency is the uncompensated theft of human lifespan, a literal crime against time. Global policy must now pivot toward this entirely new standard of accountability, holding the state responsible for the actual human life it consumes. ELY is now merging the traditional human development data with SAMI's vitalist return framework to build a more comprehensive global picture. Think of the HDI as the promises a society makes, the target for health and wealth. The Vitalist Return Score, or SRV, measures the actual restitution. It tracks the physical pipeline of resources returning to the individual. This is calculated through the V7 formula, which measures the annual vitalist deficit. This framework views taxation as a sacrifice of human life and time, rather than just a transfer of currency. Formula makes the social contract conditional. The state may only take human time if it can mathematically prove that it returns an equivalent value to the people. With this formula, the cold blue shadows of the academic office give way to a clearer understanding of what we owe one another. Professor Elias took this new math back to the corridor. He gave those missing 11 days a name, handing the data back to Mamadou. The math is now solved, but a larger question remains. In a world of systemic debt, who will be the one to enforce the return of this stolen time? We must begin by recognizing the stakes. Tax is not just currency, it is human life, and life deserves to be returned.